The moment Dr. Sarah Chen stepped into her patient's bathroom, she felt an almost physical wave of something wrong. It wasn't only the sour, humid air that struck her like a curtain. It was the sense of stillness, the faint film that clung to every surface. The woman who lived here, 73-year-old Linda, was elegant and perfectly put together. Her silver hair brushed smooth, her perfume subtle. She was the kind of patient who folded her towels precisely, who kept her home immaculate. Yet within 5 minutes, Dr. Chen could tell that the very rituals Linda followed every morning and evening were quietly sabotaging her body's chemistry. The discovery was unsettling. 6 ordinary bathroom habits, the same routines millions of older women repeat without thinking, were destroying the skin's natural shield and feeding the bacteria that create odor. What unsettled Dr. Chen most was how invisible the process was. These women did not neglect themselves, they cared too much. They washed, polished, scrubbed, and perfumed their skin until nothing protective remained. Then they wondered why the scent of their bodies changed no matter how clean they tried to be. Recent dermatology research confirms what Dr. Chen had long suspected. After menopause, more than 80% of women notice a subtle but persistent shift in their personal scent. It isn't about hygiene or vanity, it's chemistry. When estrogen declines, the skin loses oil, elasticity, and part of its acidic mantle. The friendly bacteria that once lived peacefully on the surface retreat, and the opportunists, those species that love warmth, moisture, and a slightly alkaline pH, rush to take their place. What follows is a faint, musty, metallic, sometimes sour note that clings even to freshly washed skin. Most older women don't smell because they're unclean, Dr. Chen often tells her students. They smell because their protective barrier is stripped away by the very habits they believe keep them clean. She could point to 6 of them instantly, and that day in Linda's apartment, she saw all 6 at once. The first was as mundane as it was universal. The humble washcloth and towel. In Linda's bathroom, 2 pale pink towels hung neatly from a single hook, slightly damp, though it was mid-afternoon. On the sink lay a folded washcloth, soft from years of use. It smelled faintly of soap and something else, sweet, then sour, the odor of fabric that never truly dries. Dr. Chen knew that a single square inch of that cloth, reused for days, could hold millions of multiplying bacteria. Age changes the rhythm of the skin. It sheds faster, produces less oil, and creates the perfect feast for microbes that thrive on warmth and humidity. Every time Linda wiped her face with that cloth, she was pressing yesterday's colony back into her pores. By the 3rd day, the population would double every 20 minutes, forming what microbiologists call a multiplication chamber. No wonder the light floral perfume Linda favored turned muddy by evening. Dr. Chen explained it gently. It wasn't age itself that caused the odor, it was biology. As the skin's pH drifts upward, certain species, Corynebacterium, Staphylococcus epidermidis, find paradise. They release volatile compounds that smell faintly of sour milk and old fabric. When people call it the scent of aging, they're really describing the scent of bacterial overgrowth. The fix was mercifully simple. A fresh washcloth every day, hot water washing above 140 degrees Fahrenheit with a splash of vinegar, and towels dried completely between uses. Hanging them open on a bar, not crumpled on a hook, could change everything. True dryness is lethal to bacteria. Linda listened, half embarrassed, half relieved. She had never imagined that something so trivial could matter so much. Dr. Chen smiled. "It's not trivial," she said. "It's chemistry." And the same chemistry applies to the next habit. That next habit was even more ironic. The women who suffered most were often the ones who loved fragrance. The lavender soaps, the powdery deodorants, the Ocean Breeze body wash promising all-day freshness. They lined the shelves of every pharmacy like an army of lilac-colored soldiers, each claiming to banish odor forever. Yet research from Stanford showed the opposite. The more perfumed the routine, the stronger the eventual smell. Fragrance doesn't remove odor, it feeds it. The skin hosts roughly 1,000 bacterial species, each playing its role in the invisible ecosystem that keeps us balanced. When we bombard that ecosystem with synthetic musk and antiseptic detergents, we wipe out the peacekeepers and leave the rebels in charge. They're the ones that produce the sharp, cheesy compounds that no perfume can mask. For post-menopausal women, this double assault is devastating. Hormonal change has already thinned the epidermis and reduced its natural oil. Add daily baths with perfume gel, and you have a battlefield. Dr. Robert Kim's research team called it microbial deforestation. Within days of switching to heavily scented products, they found a massive rise in odor-producing Brevibacterium, the same microbe responsible for the smell of certain cheeses. The skin begins to mimic a dairy cave rather than a rose garden. The tragedy is that the result drives women to use even more perfume, deepening the imbalance. Dr. Chen often compared it to gardening. If you flood your soil with pesticide, you don't just kill weeds, you kill the flowers too. The soil becomes barren, and the first thing that grows back is the toughest, smelliest weed. The only real solution is restoration, letting the good species return. When her patients switched to mild, fragrance-free cleansers designed for mature skin, most noticed an extraordinary change within 2 weeks. Their natural scent softened. It wasn't flowery or sugary, it was simply clean, alive, neutral. But not all problems were on the surface. Some started much deeper, quite literally in the hours a person spent on the toilet. That topic was harder to discuss, yet it turned out to be one of the most important. Constipation is rarely discussed in polite company, but Dr. Chen had learned that ignoring it was one of the costliest mistakes in women's health. She remembered a particular patient who confessed, almost apologetically, that she often sat on the toilet for 20 minutes each morning, scrolling through her phone, waiting for nature to cooperate. What the woman did not realize was that this quiet ritual was silently rewriting the biology of her lower body. The Cleveland Clinic's pelvic floor specialists had demonstrated how prolonged sitting on the toilet creates pressure where older bodies can least afford it. When you sit and strain, blood pools in the hemorrhoidal veins. The tissue of the perineum stretches like soft rubber, and microscopic tears open in the thin, aging skin around the anus and vaginal entrance. Those tiny wounds become gateways for bacteria, E. coli, Enterococcus, and their ammonia-producing cousins. Once inside, they linger, forming hidden colonies that even soap cannot reach. Add the warmth and humidity of a bathroom, and you have the perfect incubator for odor. Dr. Chen's advice was practical, 5 minutes only. If nothing happens, stand up, walk, drink water, and try again later. Constipation, she reminded patients, isn't solved by patience. It's solved by hydration, fiber, and posture. A small footstool under the feet changes the angle of the colon, allowing the body to do what it was designed to do, without strain, without tearing, without the invisible leaks that feed bacteria for days afterward. No perfume or powder can mask a process that begins in the gut. Cleanliness after the toilet was another delicate subject. Most women believed they'd mastered it decades ago. Yet, when researchers used harmless fluorescent dyes to test wiping techniques, the results were astonishing. Even women who wiped front to back left microscopic traces of fecal matter in the folds of skin that deepen with age. Loss of flexibility, arthritis, fading eyesight, all conspired to make thorough cleaning physically difficult. And the drier, thinner skin of post-menopausal bodies made it far easier for bacteria to cling. Within hours, those cells multiply, releasing sulfur compounds and ammonia that combine into the distinct smell many mistake for the scent of old age. It is not age at all, it is biology and ergonomics. Dr. Chen described the solution not as luxury but as dignity. Use soft, unscented, moistened wipes. No alcohol, no perfume, just aloe or vitamin E, and a gentle patting motion instead of harsh rubbing. Finish by drying completely. For women with limited mobility, she recommended a bidet attachment or long-handled aid. Small devices that quietly restore autonomy and true cleanliness. There was no shame in using tools. The only shame was suffering needlessly. The pattern repeated itself in countless homes. People fighting the body's chemistry instead of understanding it. Nowhere was that more evident than in what they wore closest to their skin. Underwear, to most people, feels like the most private of subjects, and therefore the least questionable. If it looks clean and smells clean, it must be clean, except that under a microscope it never is. Dr. Patricia Williams's textile studies at New York University revealed numbers that could make even the most stoic reader wince. Within 4 hours of wear, an average pair of underwear accumulated more than 10,000 bacterial cells per square centimeter. After a full day, the count soared past 100 million. Age made the growth faster. Diminished estrogen changes vaginal secretions and bladder control. A trace of moisture here, a droplet of urine there, and the microorganisms celebrate. Synthetic fabrics, nylon, polyester, anything shapewear, were the worst culprits. They trap heat and sweat, turning each garment into a personal petri dish. Even high-end detergents could not rescue them, because softeners left a waxy coating that sealed bacteria into the fibers. The solution was not glamorous. Pure cotton or bamboo if one wanted something silkier. 2 clean changes a day. Hot water washing with enzyme detergent, baking soda for neutralizing odor, and white vinegar in the rinse. No fabric softener ever. And at night, if possible, nothing at all. The simple act of sleeping without underwear allowed the area to breathe, reducing bacterial counts by up to 80%. Freedom and cleanliness, it turned out, were the same thing. Some of Dr. Chen's patients were startled by these details, others amused, but all listened most carefully when she spoke about the final, most destructive habit of all. The one born of fear. Fear of not being clean enough. Of all the rituals that betray the body, overwashing is the cruelest. 94% of older women, convinced that more soap means more purity, scrub the most delicate parts of themselves far too often. They do it out of discipline, out of dignity, out of the wish to stay fresh for their partners, or simply for their own comfort. But what actually happens is chemical vandalism. The vagina and the surrounding skin are self-regulating ecosystems, designed to protect themselves through acidity and beneficial bacteria. Soap, especially antibacterial soap, destroys both. Within 3 days of daily washing, the natural lactobacillus population collapses and anaerobic species take over. Bacteroides, Peptostreptococcus, Mobiluncus, the same microbes responsible for the odor of decay. The smell of cleanliness becomes the smell of imbalance. The irony is that this crisis is entirely self-inflicted. The women wash because they notice an odor. The odor worsens because they wash. Trapped in that loop, they try stronger soaps, scented wipes, vaginal douches. Each step strips away another layer of defense until even the tissues themselves start to burn. Dr. Chen's approach was radical only in its simplicity. Stop. Rinse once a day with warm water, no cloth, no soap, just your hand. Pat dry with a clean towel or use a cool hairdryer to remove lingering moisture. If a cleanser feels necessary, let it be a pH-balanced, fragrance-free product used sparingly on the outer skin, no more than 2 or 3 times a week. Never inside. The body knows what it's doing. When women followed these instructions, they were often stunned by how quickly their bodies recovered. Within a week, the irritation faded. Within 2, the odor was gone. One patient told Dr. Chen through tears, "I didn't realize how hard I'd been fighting myself." That sentence stayed with her. So much of aging, she thought, is not decay but misunderstanding. The quiet wars we wage against our own biology because no one ever taught us to listen. She began incorporating these lessons into every consultation, not as a lecture, but as a story. 6 habits, 6 corrections, 1 body rediscovered. At conferences, she presented the data. At community centers, she spoke more simply, demonstrating how a towel should hang or how to let the body's microbiome breathe. Audiences were often incredulous at first, then relieved. Relief was the universal emotion, the feeling of permission to be human again. And always she reminded them, the smell they feared was not inevitable. It was reversible. Cleanliness was not measured in bubbles, but in balance. Dr. Chen liked to say that every bathroom tells a story. You can walk in, see the arrangement of bottles, the state of the towels, the scent in the air, and know exactly how a person treats their own body. Some rooms smell like bleach and lilies, evidence of scrubbing and worry. Others smell faintly damp, the trace of forgotten laundry, proof of fatigue. Very few smell like nothing at all, that quiet neutrality of balance. That, to her, was the smell of health. When she returned to Linda's apartment a month later, the change was immediate. The air felt lighter, the faint sour note gone. Linda greeted her with the shy pride of someone who has kept a promise. She showed her the neatly folded stack of white washcloths, one for each day of the week, and the simple unscented cleanser she now used. The lavender soaps and floral sprays were gone. On the counter stood a small timer for her morning bathroom visits and a wooden footstool tucked beside the toilet. She laughed when Dr. Chen noticed. 5 minutes, she said. Sometimes I have to come back later, but it works. It did. Linda's skin looked calmer, less blotchy. She no longer complained about the constant dryness that had once driven her to over-moisturize and over-wash. Most of all, she said, she felt comfortable in her own scent again. I don't smell like roses, she admitted, but I smell like me. And that's enough. For Dr. Chen, that was the entire point. Aging was not a failure of cleanliness, it was a shift in chemistry. Once you understood that, you could work with your body instead of against it. Her patients didn't need miracle creams or expensive procedures. They needed knowledge. Knowledge about microbes, about water temperature, about cotton and vinegar, and the miracle of simply letting things dry. She began writing a guide for her students, something between a scientific paper and a conversation, titled The Hidden Ecology of Aging Skin. In it, she described how the microbiome of the body functions like a coral reef. Countless organisms living in delicate cooperation, producing substances that protect their host. Destroy the reef with detergent, and the ocean turns cloudy and lifeless. Leave it alone, and it cleans itself. The same was true for skin. Each habit she identified, the reused washcloth, the scented soap, the long session on the toilet, the careless wiping, the synthetic underwear, the obsessive washing, was a small pollution event. None catastrophic on its own, but together enough to tip the balance of the entire ecosystem. The more she studied the subject, the more she realized how cultural the problem was. Society had taught women, especially older women, to be afraid of their own natural scent. Advertising equated freshness with sterility, purity with perfume. For generations, women had internalized the message that the clean body must smell of something else. Flowers, fruit, the sea. Dr. Chen thought that was a tragedy. The smell of clean skin, she wrote, is the smell of life itself. It's subtle, warm, and human. It's the scent of belonging to the world. Her seminars grew popular not because she promised beauty, but because she restored dignity. She talked about the chemistry of aging without euphemism, with humor and compassion. She told stories about soldiers in field hospitals whose wounds healed faster when the nurses stopped sterilizing every inch of skin and let the body's natural defenses recover. She told the story of her own grandmother, who lived to 94 and bathed with nothing but warm water and a coarse cotton cloth that she boiled each evening. The old woman never used perfume, yet her grandchildren remembered her as smelling of sunlight and clean linen. That memory, Dr. Chen believed, was more accurate than any laboratory result. Over time, she began to see her work less as medicine and more as reconciliation. The human body, she often said, doesn't age in isolation. It ages in relationship, with its microbes, its environment, its daily habits. To heal it, you don't declare war on time. You make peace with biology. You dry your towels properly. You use soap sparingly. You let air and light do part of the work. Simple acts, repeated daily, quietly return the body to balance. In interviews, she was sometimes asked whether she could truly separate science from superstition in such matters. She always smiled. "There's nothing mystical about bacteria," she would reply. "They just want a stable home. Give them that and they will take care of you." Linda's case became one of her favorite examples. Months after their first meeting, she wrote to Dr. Chen, "You taught me to stop fighting my body. I feel like I got 10 years of comfort back. It was a small victory, invisible to the outside world, but to Dr. Chen it mattered more than any publication. Comfort, she thought, was the real measure of health, the quiet assurance that your body no longer feels like an enemy." The story spread. Health magazines picked it up, and suddenly journalists were writing about the 6 habits that secretly make older women smell bad. The headlines were crude, but the message was finding an audience. Readers discovered that aging didn't have to mean surrendering to unpleasantness. It meant learning new chemistry. Dermatologists began teaching about the skin microbiome in geriatric clinics. Manufacturers introduced unscented pH-balanced cleansers labeled microbiome-friendly. It was, in its small way, a revolution born in a bathroom. Dr. Chen continued her home visits for years, long after she could have retreated to research alone. She liked the intimacy of them, the conversations over tea, the glimpse into how people truly lived. She would stand beside a patient's sink, point to the washcloth, the soap dish, the shelf of products, and explain what was happening at the microscopic level. She spoke not in warnings, but in metaphors. "Your skin is a garden," she would say. "Don't flood it with chemicals. Water it, let it breathe. Let the sun touch it. The garden knows how to bloom." In quiet moments, she thought about how much of medicine was simply education. No one had ever told these women that the body changes after 50, that sweat composition shifts, that hormones alter the very smell of the skin. Instead, they were left to interpret the new scent as failure or shame. Knowledge dissolved that shame like soap dissolving grease. Her last lecture on the subject ended with a simple line that drew a long silence from the room. "Cleanliness is not the absence of smell. It's the presence of balance. Then she thanked her audience and left them with a list of small tasks. Air your towels, drink your water, change your cotton, trust your body. They weren't prescriptions, they were invitations to peace. When she got home that evening, she opened her own bathroom door and breathed in. There was no perfume, no sharpness, just the faint scent of warm air and dry linen. For a moment she stood there, smiling. It was the smell of nothing, which was to say, the smell of everything working as it should. If this story helped you understand your body a little better, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a mother, a sister, anyone who deserves to feel comfortable in her own skin again. And if you'd like to learn more science-based, practical ways to keep your body healthy and balanced as you age, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click the like button, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next video. We read every single comment, so tell us, which of these habits surprised you the most? Have you noticed changes in your skin or your body chemistry over the years? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Thank you for watching, for caring about your health, and for being part of this growing community of women who choose knowledge over fear. Stay curious, stay kind to your body, and we'll see you in the next episode.